What's up, everyone? If you are in the live chat, just say hello. Let me send a greeting as well. How are you guys doing today? I gotta find some music I can play in the background for our streams. All right. So let me just check one real quick thing. Also, I'm going to be making some upgrades and stuff within the next few weeks here. So, if you join the live stream, just go ahead and say hello in the chat. Other than that, let's get started. So, last week we touched on typography, right? We had 2 different classes where we talked about it. The principles of motion on type and how to use typography. Also making sure that we were speaking about like the basics of typography and design and using the grid. And I see that a lot of you have gotten in projects, which is good. I should be getting to those soon. But I did want to start today's class off going back to our first project. We are going to review everyone's bouncing ball animations who have submitted so far, so I can go ahead and put grades in. What I'm going to do and this is going to be like this for all of our assignments, right? Because part of learning with motion design is showing your work to other people. That's a big thing. You don't keep your work hidden, right? And so we're going to go over everyone's today. I'm going to give all of you guys feedback. The likelihood of someone getting it perfect right on the money the first time is a very low percentage chance. Mostly you guys will all have some kind of improvements that you can make on this animation. So I'm going to go through them. I'm going to give you guys some notes, and then what I want to see is I want those notes implemented when we go and do our first revision rounds, right? Which will be coming up in a few weeks or a couple weeks even. Time's just flying by. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be typing notes at the same time so I can input those into Canvas for you guys. And so you'll have that, and that way you don't have to consistently refer back all the time. But we'll see how long that takes. If it's taking too long, I'll just continue with discussing them. So Eric is first up. All right, Eric. Yeah, nice. Not bad. This good start on this, Eric. I like the good job on the hand-drawn animated ball. I'm just watching it a couple times. I believe it was 1, 3, 4, 5 bounces. Over delivered. There's something to be said about over delivering. I will say this. I'm not upset about that with the as far as putting 5 bounces in. The deliverable was to have 4 bounces. In fact, let's pull up the deliverable, the module real quick so that we can just make sure that we're grading appropriately based on what the deliverables were, right? Or we're discussing them. So let's see here. Deliverables. An MP4. Don't use let me see here. I think I can just hold shift. Yeah. Don't upload. I don't want to see After Effects files. I don't want to see C4D files or .fla files. You know, what I want to see in this is like a fully rendered MP4 video. And The reason I don't want these files is because this is not how you would deliver it to, you would not deliver your working files to anyone actually. Like if you go off to work, in this field, you will recognize very quickly that you do not give your intellectual property away, right? You don't want to give away project files with the opportunity for someone to go fishing around in it and messing around with things, right? Because you did it the reason you did for the first time. So you don't hand in Cinema 4D files or After Effects files. Those are called working files. We don't do that. And usually in the field, what you do is you charge a significant amount of money for those files, because then those people have that opportunity to send it to another animator or motionographer and basically give away your secret sauce, right? And so let's just get into the habit of always having MP4s unless specified otherwise, and that's why it's important to read the read these specifically, the deliverable parameters. It should be in 1920 by 1080. The YouTube media encoder, I'm not going to be able to really see that specifically unless I go into some details, but I'm going to assume you guys probably did all of that. And then repeating the bounce at least 4 times. And we want a title that fades in and out at the beginning. So with these deliverables in mind, let's go ahead and go back here to Eric's. So over delivered with the 5th bounce. And like I was saying with over delivery earlier, is that when you are asked to do something within a certain parameter like bounds, right? If you go beyond that, that gives the client the ability to pick apart even further, right? The more work you show, the more work that can be under the microscope for scrutiny. Not that I'm saying it's going to be, but I'm just letting you guys know, just to keep that in mind moving forward. I don't care here. This is great. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate the extra bounce. As far as like the balls, they look really good. This, the Cinema 4D ball, I'm seeing a good amount of, squashing going on. It looks really nice. I see the blur happening on the After Effects ball. Eric, you seem to have done it appropriately the first time. There are a couple things with the titles. It's not on screen long enough. I think you're at maybe, you're not even at the second number 2. You're not even there yet. So let's see, this is 9 seconds total. At least, you know, all red bounce animation. You want to be able to read that for like a good, like all red bounce animation. 1, 2, possibly even 3. You know, you're going to apply the same lessons and stuff that you learned last week to this when you're when you're going back to revise. The other thing I would do is based on the title specifically. Here, let me see. All right, let me line this up. So when you're handing this off, that right there is the most important thing to be able to see, is your name. So you're going to want this one, you're going to want to make this word quite a bit bigger so that it can hold its own weight against the word bounce and animation, right? These bounce is your biggest word. Animation is your second largest word. And then your name is so tiny up at the top. I mean, not really super tiny, but right compared to the other text it is. So what I would do, you know, creating things inside of a bounding box can be difficult unless you're used to working with typography. And so what I would do is I would actually make this bigger. I'd probably condense this down a little bit and even the animations to match specifically your name. And then once you do that, I think it'll look a lot nicer. You can even apply the sizing of the font. I'm not quite sure which font this is, in fact, because this part of the B right there seems a little bit odd. If you stretched the type, don't stretch the type, right? Change the font size. We didn't talk about that specifically with this project, but that's what I'm telling you now. So that you know, so when you go to change that. And then the other thing, it fades off decently. I would maybe, there's a hitch somewhere in the animation where there's like a glitchy, it goes all white for a second, like one frame. It's just because the video is recycling, I think, like it's replaying. First frame and the last frame don't match. That's probably why. You can fade this off. How about you, no, don't fade it off. Don't worry about fading it off. Just, and it looks like you started to fade it off. So if you're going to fade it off, make sure it fades all the way off. And if you're not going to fade it off, just make sure it's fully opaque and not transparent at the end there. So for Eric, let me put these notes down for you. Adjust the sizing of the type. Don't stretch it. And then, what was the other one? Adjust your fade. Make sure it's readable. All right, Eric, so those are the things that I want to see in your next revision, or in the revision round after this. So we are going to move on to Asia. Same thing, Asia. And this is probably what we're going to see a lot of today, is too quick. The titles are going to be too fast. Another thing is to put your name in it. So let's do that right away. All right, add name to title. I actually don't know if that was, I'm gonna, all right. Looking good so far. There is one little thing that I'm gonna recommend. Let's extend the timing of the title on screen, right? We want it on there longer. I'm pretty sure you had 4 bounces. 1, 2. Nice. Good fade off. I would maybe, that just ends. All right, fades off completely. Good job. There is a spot specifically on the After Effects ball up at the top here, and I'm sure you might have noticed it. What's happening is, I like to call it a hitch in the animation, where it kind of jerks like that, like it's not at the same exact starting and end point. Remember that in order to have a seamless loop, you have to have the position keyframes at the beginning and at the end exactly the same, and make sure that you set all of your position keyframes, all of it from like the top of the bounce to the bottom back up to the top. Make sure that you set all of those before you start easing your keyframes, or else that will have a difference on it as well. So if I play it again, you'll just see right there, there's just a slight jump. And then I think that one looks good. Your Cinema 4D one looks good. It might slightly squash a little early, but I will accept this. I think it looks good overall. Maybe even, yeah. In fact, there is a little hitch at the top of the Cinema 4D one as well. So make sure that those that those beginning and end keyframe values for the position, they match. So let me see here. Check the values. Keyframes on both the Cinema 4D and After Effects ball. And I believe that looks pretty good. I'm not sure what typeface used here, but it looks decent. There's a little bit of extra space in between here, but that's okay. Looks good overall. Way to go, Asia. Let me see here next. All right, Brian. I see Brian went with the background choices I made. Oh, okay, so this is fast. So the first thing I'm going to notice, Brian, let me put here, is that we're going to want to add a title. Fade that title in and out. Make sure you have 4 total bounces of all the balls. The reason we do that, right, is because I want a chance to be able to watch how it's looking. With one ball bounce, it's not long enough on screen for me to really be able to decipher like what the animation is looking like. And so that's why I requested to have the 4 bounces total. So let's go ahead and just kind of break this down. I would adjust, as far as just design overall, Brian, I would adjust the colors of either the background, let me see, I would maybe change the background color, would be the quickest. I would also, what you could do is change the ball colors. There's a specific part where in one of the videos where Dr. Farina talks about changing the fill color, mapping the fill color to the black and white of the ball so that you can change the color of the ball, the After Effects one, and just so it looks a little bit more design oriented and a little bit more focused on that. And then I would also center your work, right? Everything's kind of off. There's a lot of space. Let me see here, wrong side. There's a lot of space here specifically, versus this section right here, right? So I would take all of these, I would take this one, and this one, and I would just shuffle them over, wrong way, move them over this way slightly, just so like the balls are centered, right? Like at least one of them is in the center of your composition. Let me see as far as motion goes. So we need to add the titles. Down at the bottom, Brian, you have the floor. Add a mask to the floor of the After Effects ball. I'm gonna not a shuffle. I'm gonna replay these. Okay, your Cinema 4D ball looks great. The After Effects ball looks pretty good. I like the blur that you added to it. And the only other thing is that right up at the top there, there's a blank frame. Right there. Actually, I can't believe I stopped at the right exact moment, especially with the media player. But right here, one of your keyframes is missing. So make sure that you interpreted your footage on that Adobe Animate ball, and if you did, it should fit all the way through. Same with the other ones, and if not, then you might be adding an extra keyframe in on like the composition length. So I would just check the to make sure. Yeah, it was a perfect pause. Hello, Sarah. Happy you're joining today. Check to make sure that you interpreted your footage. All right. Good job though overall, Brian, and some things to fix on it, but as you move forward it'll get a little bit easier making those fixes, right? So we have Manny. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Manny, good job overall. You did a good first pass on this. I would say just a few things that I want to see. I know you have the bouncing ball title at the bottom, but I'd like to see it as like a main title across the entire screen, fading on and then fading off. And when that fade off happens is when the balls show up and actually do their bounce. So you might extend this. You can I know you had 5 bounces on there, so you can shorten the video and cut off one of those bounces. And then or wherever one of those bounces started, use that timing to put the title in, if that makes sense. If that doesn't, you can write me, but yeah, other than that, let me see, adding a title, full screen that fades in and out. And then also change your, let's update your update the colors. A big white screen isn't terrible, but right now what you're seeing is that the ball is getting lost on the edges, kind of, right? It's a little bit harder to read. And legibility is done in multiple ways. It's not just with type, right? Legibility comes into play when we're talking about art as well, with contrast and saturation and things of the sort like that. I know a lot of you guys are artists, so you're apply those techniques as well to creating your animations, right? Because we want to see good design along with it. And so if you guys are ever questioning like the legibility of something, I like to sometimes work with a 50% gray background, which allows me to see contrast a little bit better with it. But if you just either update the background or the balls, then I think we'd be good to go here. The motion of it is pretty smooth. That Cinema 4D one looks pretty good. The After Effects one looks good. Let me see. Update the colors of the background. Let me finish this. Or ball. Or the balls. Let's add a floor to the After Effects ball. I saw you had the blur in there. That looked good. The blur. I think so. Nope, there is no motion blur. So let's add some motion blur onto there. Add motion blur to After Effects ball. And then the other thing I would do is scale up your... We want the balls to kind of meet at the same spot. So if you just scale this hand-drawn animation up, then it should fit a little bit more appropriately, just to make them kind of on the same level. They don't have to be exact, but as close to kind of filling up the same amount of space, right? Let's make sure each one of them has a designated space where they can bounce. So scale up the hand-drawn. Other than that, Manny, it looks pretty good. We got an MP4. I should probably bring these and we can check to make sure your guys' frame rates and stuff are right. I'll show you. Oh, that's great. Right away. First of all, Manny, good job on everything. Appreciate the work onto it. Looked good. Let's go to Zoe. And right away, I could tell that her title is on point. You can add your name in if you want to. Let me close that out. Sorry, Megan. Good amount. See how long? 1, 2, 3, almost not even, that's not even 3 seconds, right? Like 2 seconds maybe. 1, 2, and then fades off. You could almost have this on there another beat, but it's on there long enough for me to read what it is and tell what it is. Great job. Colors are even. The lines are fluid on here. I'm just going to make this repeat. The Adobe Animate Ball, like your squash and stretch on here, looks really nice. You've got the motion blur on the After Effects ball. Some good fading out right here on the floor. And overall, like everything looks really nice and cohesive. So good job. I mean, the only thing I would really say is to just maybe lengthen the title by one, like a beat, and then you'll be good. And then 1, 2, I think there were 4. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, and I think we're gonna have 4. Yeah, good job. Nice fading off on the fade off on the video. Good job, Zoe. Let's go next to Lee. All right, and this is Lee Griffin. I know there's 2 Lees in our class. Good job overall, Lee. Let me see that. Let me watch this again. I hate that I have to repeat. Let's go back here to your title, Lee. Good first pass on this. Let me see here. Just want to make sure I add your notes. I would just, it's just slightly off right here. Let me see. Like right here. If I were to draw a straight line, there's too much space in between this A versus where the B is. So make sure that you're using a grid. And like I said, you guys didn't know this during this animation, but this section right here looks pretty lined up. And so maybe it's just like adjusting the kerning. I noticed some of you guys have your name on it, some of you don't. You can add your name if you want. You can take it out if you don't want. I'm not going to care either way, but if you do add more, like I said, you get it right, or do it well, like execute it well enough, and it won't be an issue. Like I won't obviously, if there's nothing there for me to critique, then I'm not going to, but like if there is something there, like I'll add it in, right? So that's up to you guys. The spacing a little bit in between the words is a little bit tight, but that's not that big of a problem. You can almost like, because there's a lot of negative space up at the top and the sides and the bottom, it's centered, I can see that, but maybe you could even just expand this out slightly, like make it a little bit larger. You know, I'm not going to mark you if you don't, but it might just like fill up the screen a little bit more. I think the timing on it was pretty good. Let me do that again. Yeah, great timing on that. Lee's timing is what you guys should strive for as far as having the title on screen, right? So oh, and the spellings, thank you, Sarah. I didn't even look at that. Yeah, the spelling's off, so just correct the spelling. I don't have the best English skills, so thank you for catching that. That would be that's something you want to definitely double check before you render. I've done it. It's not, the unfortunate thing about After Effects in these programs is they don't have like an active spell check that happens throughout. So if you have that issue, you can always take it from, like, you can make a Google Doc or inside of Word and type it up, make sure it's spelled correct, the grammar's correct, and then copy and paste it into there. That way you know everything, as far as like grammatically and spelling wise is right. But yeah, you want to update that. Scale the title slightly. Let's check spelling. And then the other thing I was saying is make sure to use the grid for title. But you know, it's just those tiny little smidge of space. When it's off like that, your eye will catch it, because there's something about it that just doesn't look quite perfect on there. And so I would change that, but let's watch the bounces. Great hand-drawn animated one. I love it. Good squash and stretch on there. The lines are cool. You're the same for the After Effects ball. They look great. No hitches going on. The floor is nice and gradated. The Cinema 4D ball, let's look at that one. All right, I would maybe work on your curves right here a little bit. The curve and the speed of this, the Cinema 4D ball, it's just a little slow. And so let's work on updating the F curve in C4D, because you really want that like fast motion to the ground. It's moving a little too slow. So I'm not sure if you adjusted the F curves at all, but remember, it should be going up and kind of slowing down and then coming down really quick. Acceleration on the way down, deceleration on the way up, similar to the other ones. I'm pretty sure you did the curves pretty well on. Yep. Yeah, that one does it well. So just make sure you're applying it to the Cinema 4D. And then I would just maybe update the background color. Even, and this goes for Manny as well. Even if it's just like an off-white, that's okay. Just to differentiate between that middle ball, right? And to just apply those art, like color theory techniques to your work. Background color. All right. Good job, Lee. Overall, nice, solid work. Alrighty, let's go to Sarah. Sarah's in the chat with me. Hey, yo. All right. Oh, crazy. Did you put like an effect on this ball? Or is this like something with the blur? Let me see here. Good job on that type. It's all lined up, spaced out really well. The sizing looks good. Your font isn't squished or stretched. And so that looks really nice, Sarah. I'm going to also add the notes. I'm making a document with notes for you guys so that I can post them inside of Canvas as well. But let's go back here and see how long it is. Beautiful. On screen long enough. That title was good. Good job on that. I actually think that's really cool. These like so your lines are like different than what Casey taught in one of the videos that was on there. I like these kind of really quick like blur lines that you added onto there. Yeah, so you could even add the highlight to the hand drawn ball if you want to. I'll leave that as an optional thing, but I'll add that to the notes. let's add a hand-drawn highlight to the ball. So the After Effects one, it might have something to do with, I don't know if you added, did you toggle on the motion blur in the timeline and then add it to the ball? Or did you search up a Gaussian blur and add that to the ball? Let me know how you did it, because this is noise, right? This isn't it's not a normal thing to add. It's something to do with like the blur, the way the blur is working. Were you getting any kind of errors when you were... It was already like that when I turned it on, weirdly enough. So this might be an issue with your graphics card. Motion blur on. You just ticked it on. Did you turn it on as well on the layer and not just in the timeline? Because you have to turn it on the, like, you have to turn it on and then you have to like turn it on the layer as well. The motion looks great. It accelerates and decelerates well. Same with your Cinema 4D. I love that everything's red. It looks nice. I can differentiate the things. So good work on the animations. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4 full bounces. Yeah. It could be a graphics card issue on here. So we'll talk, I think, either further in this week or next week a little bit about adding smears. I know you said last week that you enjoyed smears in animation. I believe that was you. So I thought I did it right, but I could just be the graphics card like you said. I think I need to update the driver. Yeah, update the driver on that graphics card. I don't know if you updated. Recently there was an update as well to the Adobe products, and you will get like some warnings about compatibility between the NVIDIA card and like the playback. Like the NVIDIA card is crashing After Effects for some reason. And same with Premiere. I'm getting the same notification there. So if you guys get that, it's something that the companies are working out. I think that it's on Adobe's end. And so they'll need to send out a patch for that, which they'll do, but that's on the most recent update. So if you guys get that error, that's what that is. But I would definitely check your graphics card and update it if possible. And if you're still dealing with those issues, Sarah, you and I, we can either take some time together, or we can talk about another technique, based on what your computer can handle, right? So we'll go over that a little bit further later when you go to make these changes and these revisions. So just checking the graphics card for the update. The colors look good. Let's add the highlight to the hand-drawn ball. The blur was fine in the typography. Okay, so then what I'll have you do then is turn the motion blur off. Uncheck that motion blur option in the timeline. And then you can go into the effects and presets and add Gaussian blur. You spell it like this. I think like... Make sure you can see Gausssin, Gaussian blur. It might even be, I actually think it's this way. Nope. Aussin blur. Either way, it's the only one named that. It's named after the person who invented this specific effect for After Effects. So you can add that on there and just slightly turn up the blur into that effect, right? You'll go where your projects panel is, there's the effect panel. You'll go into there and you'll just slightly add some blur that way, like maybe to like 2 or 3, and then see if that works a little bit better for you. So try that. And but other than that, great start, looks good. We will move to the next student. Look, you guys, if you end up in the chat, you get personalized help. That's funny. I can't believe it worked with a phone stylus. That's pretty crazy. If you need, I think they Wacom sells them, or you might be able to find like a replacement on Amazon pretty quickly. But I mean, this is really the only time we actually do hand drawn animation in class. You might be able to like add it later if you want to, but it's not necessary. So, but good job overall. And so, Kaylee. Okay, so we have a good start, right? Good start on this. We've got 4 bounces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, let me put your name down here. I love the colors are super vibrant. E-I-G-H. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm spelling your name correctly. The bounce animation typeface looks fine. You could just like, it looks a little off center. There looks like there's a little bit of extra room on this side and on this side. It looks pretty balanced this way, but it might not be fully centered. So I'm going to say to check your type on your title. Check the center alignment on the title. And then also, let's see how long it's on here for. You can maybe just tighten up the space in between the words slightly, not by much. In general, good job there. Good timing on that. 2, 3, 4. So let's, I'm going to start with the After Effects ball because that one's the one that's on there the entire time. So we're going to add that motion blur to the AE ball. But other than that, that one looks really nice. You did a good job on the acceleration and deceleration. Let me check to make sure it's eased. Yeah, that looks good. Even this, the animation of this specifically looks nice, of the C4D one. But I'm sure you're wondering why things stop, right? First of all, the ball here, the hand-drawn animated ball that would normally be on screen here, it disappears, right? So that means you're missing some frames there. So I would check to make sure that on the hand-drawn ball, check to make sure you have the appropriate number of frames drawn, which would be 9 down, 6 on floor, 9 up. And then the other thing I noticed is that it goes way off screen, so you might want to bring the scale down. And then it also looks like there's space in between each layer when you're replaying this, when you're looping it. We want to make sure that the layers are end to end. Your compositions are touching and not space in between, because you're missing frames here. And so I don't know if the ball actually goes off screen and is continuing up here, which would be a scale issue, right? And if not, then it's missing frames. Same with this here. What's happening is your compositions aren't butted up against each other, and so it's causing blank keyframes. And let me show you exactly what I'm talking about when I open this. And so that's kind of where you will see glitches in animations where there's missing, we call it a missing frame, right? So if I were to do anything, first of all, this is a terrible choice in color. Let's change that. I would center these. There's a lot I would do to this, first of all, to make it better. But if we go into, let's say we had the two compositions. This one, let's duplicate it. And then say that they were cut off here. And then this one cut off here. All right, if they are not fully lined up back to back right there, let me zoom in. They have got to be like one. If you move one keyframe, it should be one. If you move the other, it should be the other picture. There should be no blank spaces in between. The blank space would look like something like this, like you have one or two frames where there's nothing. And so what you'll notice is if I play, it gives me like a glitch in my animation, and then all of a sudden you're like, here you have a frame, and then all of a sudden blank frames, they're gone, right? And then they're back again. So make sure there's no space in between those compositions or those layers, depending on what you're duplicating, and you should be good there. Let me toggle back on all of this, and I believe that was it. Yeah, other than that, really good job. Interesting, like, color palette. I'm into it. I'm into the hot pink and the purple. Vibrant pink. I'm digging it. Also, you're cutting off either the composition here, so the sizing either of your composition might be off for the Cinema 4D ball, but there's like a cutoff that's happening right here, where the ball clearly, you can tell kind of where the frame is right there up at the top. You can see that definitive. We don't want that. We want it all to look like this, right? We want the entire ball to show the entire time. Or what this does is it tells you there is an invisible box there that we're hitting the barrier. So we don't want that. So I would fix that as well. So bring the scale of the hand-drawn ball, update the layers so they are up against each other, and then the Cinema 4D ball isn't getting cut off. But good job, Kaylee. Good first pass on this. You guys are all doing really well. I am impressed. So let's go to shell. I believe yeah, Kaylee, go ahead and go back and check. Welcome to the chat, by the way. I'm happy that you were in here when I was talking about that. But yeah, if you're having an issue not seeing it, I definitely recommend using Belle, because Belle can she's got like more of a time slot to sit there and help you guys one thing at a time, where I might not have that availability, and I might have, you know, a slimmer chance to look at things with you. But if you guys ever want to like go over this stuff later where you're not seeing it or can't find out where the fix is, go ahead and let me know, and I will absolutely find some time where we can get together and talk about it, because I'm not expecting these to be immediate changes, right? I just want them to be done for when we do our first revision round, which I'll talk about whenever we get to it. So what also could be happening, Kaylee, is like you're zoomed in to the ball inside of Cinema 4D. You're zoomed in as far as like the viewport, and you don't want to be zoomed in. You You want to be pulled back far enough where you see the entire ball. That's why I didn't tell you guys how to like do zooming and stuff before you did this, so that wouldn't happen. But let me know if that's the case, then we can try and find a way to fix it. Oh, that's kind of odd that it had to be a 3D layer. That must be like some kind of weird bug or glitch in the matrix, because that's not a normal thing. But you'll find that like doing weird things like that will sometimes work. Like I said, even if you pre-comped the ball, Sarah, if you were to put the ball in a pre-composition, it might have fixed it that way as well. So let's go ahead and look at shells. And I apologize, you guys, if you guys go by different names, please correct me on that. I want to be able to be calling you by your preferred names. So the first thing I noticed is we need a title, right? All right. Good first pass. Let's put that on a repeat here. Huh. I wonder why. Three. Okay, so we need to add one more bounce, I believe, in there. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's just do these one at a time. Good first pass. Let us add a title. And then we want to add an extra bounce. Let's be mindful about color palette. And try and keep like the balls a similar color. Like if all the balls are blue, right, then have the background be a different color. And if you guys need like color choice palettes and stuff, there's some resources I can put in our Miro board that will give you guys ideas for color palettes and stuff. Here is another thing, is that your composition lasts for a total of 24 seconds. So when you rendered this out, it not only rendered what you needed, but then it rendered a bunch extra. So make sure that the time on your timeline is not like 30 seconds long. And if you're working, remember you can trim the composition by right clicking on the timeline toolbar thing. Let me open this up again. I should just left this open. Would have been time saver. You can either go into your composition settings and update it that way. Of course it would do this to me and shut it all out. Main ball bounce. Okay. So like, let's say this whole thing is 30 seconds and I wanted half of that. I would go to wherever I wanted the animation to end. I would hit the N button and then right click on this section right here, specifically this bar right here. Right click on there and then trim comp to work area. This one. That one's the one you guys want to hit, and then it'll automatically, it trimmed it automatically. See, now my animation is only 1 second long instead of 2. So if you go ahead and do that, Shell, you should be fine. Let me go back here. I just make sure I didn't make that mistake and save it. And then, let's see, I said, oh, not this one. Where are we, Shell? There we are. As far as the hand-drawn animated ball, you want to get rid of this guide ball. So remove the guide ball. And maybe if you want to add the highlight, you can. That is optional. I'm not going to mark you guys down for that. I see you added like a large floor in the background. Let's stick to the floor kind of how it was done in the video. So I would just mask the floor out. work on your easing on both the Cinema 4D and the After Effects ball. On both C4D and AE. And then what that'll do is you want to make that acceleration and deceleration a little bit more dramatic there. But good job. I think you added the motion blur, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm seeing motion blur there. A good squash happening on the ball. So in general, the motion's pretty good. I would just ease these two a little bit more dramatic. Remove that guide layer. And you can, all you have to do to remove that guide layer is just turn the vision, like turn the little eye off, toggle the little eye off, and you should be good. So, but good job on this. Good first start. And I'm excited to see the changes you make. All right. And I believe Ramini, let me know if I'm saying that correctly, please. Again, I don't want to torture you guys with me saying names incorrectly all semester. So add a title. Let's see. Add the title. Maybe update colors. Some of the videos you guys might have watched might have had the instruction to do like a gradient background, and as well as like the floor like this, but let's update it and do the masked out floor a little bit more. And those videos are the ones on the bottom of the module where Casey talks about he goes over masking that out. I believe it is in this one. I believe it's in this one. And make sure you guys are watching that too if you don't know how to add the titles. And then what I want you guys to also do is, bring everything you learned last week into those videos. And let me go back to your video. Let's play it. Let's see how many bounces we get. 1. Okay, so we need 4 bounces. Let me repeat this so I can actually watch them playing. Good job on the motion overall. I would say just to also work on your keyframe, like the work on the curves of the After Effects ball as well as the Cinema 4D ball, because we want that acceleration. It looks like they're kind of linear right now, and we want to see acceleration on the way down and deceleration on the way back up. Hand-drawn ball looks great. Let's see. Adjust the curves of the C4D ball and AE ball. And then I want you to, what was it I said to add? Make sure there are 4 bounces and add the title. All right. Other than that, good first pass. All right. Lee. Here's our second Lee. All right, Lee, same thing here. Make sure you're using the grid right here and line these up. So you're going to probably just scale this word. You'll scale animation up to fit a little bit more, because there's like this, there's this gap right here of space. Let me show you. Oh, come on now. Ah, there we go. Where this should be at the same spot. So make sure you're using that grid. And I would also scale the title. Alright, so let's see here. Scale, title, and use a grid. Other than that nice typeface, let's see how long it stays on for. I would just keep it on for one more second. Your hand-drawn animated ball looks great. Yeah, that looks nice. Let me see here. Leave title up on screen. One more beat. You'll hear me say a beat, right? Because how I like to say, like, a beat. Give me a beat. I want a beat. I want it to stay up there, one extra beat. It doesn't have to be a full second, right? It just has to be enough for me to get a good, like, tasting of what the title is. And like the hand-drawn animation ball, first of all, the colors look good in here. Hand-drawn animated ball is great. Let's look at this After Effects ball. I would maybe just, now the acceleration and deceleration looks good on it, but be mindful again of the composition and layer placement. Because it looks like you're just missing a frame from the Cinema 4D ball. Okay. Other than that, good job. Let me see how many bounces you have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. There is another area here where there's a blank keyframe on it. See there's a blank frame. So just make sure that those layers are butted up next to each other. And good job on this. Good job, Lee. Way to go, Lee. All right, Nolan. I like it, Nolan, being on screen the appropriate amount of time. Scale these so they're about the same. I can see what you're doing by keeping them left aligned because we spoke about that. And so you can keep the left alignment, but just go ahead and scale these, the words so that they kind of sit on top of each other like building blocks. So let me write that. But and then center that title because it doesn't look centered. And if you guys want to make sure that it's centered, you can always place the anchor point in the middle of the word at first by holding down Control and double clicking the anchor point tool, and then center the object or the word in half of 1080 by, or half of 920 by 1080 is 960 by 540. And so if you type that into the position, it'll automatically center whatever you're putting into the middle of your composition. And then just change the Y value a little bit so that you can stack them according to, you know, what you want the layout to look like. But stick to a grid there. Things are looking a little fast, so I'm not sure if the footage was interpreted incorrectly, but let's check out that. I believe I didn't have to interpret my footage because it was already at 24 frames a second, so you might not have to interpret it if it's at the correct frame rate. So check the interpretation of the hand-drawn ball. And then these look like linear keyframes, Nolan, so I want you to go through and adjust the keyframes of both the keyframes of the After Effects ball and the Cinema 4D ball. Or not the keyframes, but the curves. Adjust the curves. I'm sorry. Of the Cinema 4D ball and AE ball. And then just make sure your comps and layers line up. Other than that, it looks good. I think you have 4 bounces. Let me count here again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, you got 4 bounces. So you're almost on your way. This one's a little fast, so I think you don't have to interpret your footage. You might be able to skip that step. And then just like I said, check on the easings of that and then make sure those layers are butted up to each other. And we're going to move to Maisie. Let me see here. Cute typeface, Maisie, but I don't think that is part of the, I don't know if that is part of the approved type. So for now, please pick a different type. It's cute, I like it, but just for the parameters of the class and for because we got to stick to a standard. So use an approved GCC font, and I don't think we had spoken about it at that moment. So you can take out the Art 184 and buy, it just has to say, you can have your name on there, Maisie, but you can just take off, it can just be Maisie Bounce Animation. And you don't want a really long title to have to read, so shorten up the title. But it looks like the spacing here is a little bit much, and that's why you don't want that. So I would shorten up the title, stack them, but I think it stays on long enough. It's on extra long because, and I see what you did because there was a lot more to read. So shorten up the title. We'll say wording and the fade out time. You want to shorten that as well. So it'll be only like 2 seconds instead of 3. And then let's see how many bounces you got going. 1, 2, 3. Look good. 4 full bounces. Play it again. Got the blur in there. Got the squash instead. So these look good. Yeah, just update maybe the background colors. Sometimes a gradient background can work against what you're doing, so I just suggest against the gradient background right now, just while doing this, unless you can prove me otherwise and have great design skills. And then, you know, I will eat my words like a bowl of alphabet soup. And then the only other thing I would do, if possible, Maisie, is to maybe make this more of an like oblong, but I'm not going to be too picky on that because I understand if we're working with a mouse, and if that is a mouse, that is a good job. So if you can, don't worry, do it. If you can't, don't worry about it. But great job. And we will move on. All right, Amaya, this is just an audio file, so it rendered out incorrectly. So if you want to re-upload that, we'll want you to re-render that and then submit it in. That's great. Great job, Janelle. The title looked good. It was on screen long enough. The bounces look good. Let me just rewatch that. Yeah, the title looks great. It's on screen long enough. The 2D ball looks good. You've got the blur there on the After Effects ball. Got your acceleration and deceleration. I would make sure that it's kind of slightly decelerating, and your ball doesn't actually hit the ground. The After Effects one right there. We're missing that ball hit. Dang, once but not twice. I want to see contact, right? Even if you have to overshoot it through, like if you have to bring the floor up a little bit, that's going to be okay. You can do that as well. But I would just adjust the easing on the After Effects ball so that it decelerates all the way to the ground. It's going to hit the ground and bounce up quick. So you want to accelerate. You don't want to slow it down before it hits the ground. Acceleration goes all the way into the ground for when it hits the ground. And then just bring the floor up slightly. This color, the white background on this works because all of the colors are cohesive. So there's not like a distracting, it doesn't make my eye go kind of all over the place. But generally, like just maybe just an off white, like even of this kind of color, like tone of pink would maybe look nice. So you can also do that if you want to. But good job, Janelle. Overall, it's a really good first pass on that. And Yvette, I know Yvette, you said you're working on that, right? So, and these are PNG sequences, so make sure that you just composite them all together inside of After Effects, and then I'll look at that later for you. Juliana. All right. Juliana, we want to center this and then use an approved typeface. Let me see here. All right. So, Juliana. Okay, we want to use an approved typeface or font. And then center the font, the title, and then stack them. And then make sure you're working on a grid. It looks like you have it on a grid, like off to the side, but we want this centered. Usually titles are centered. They're still, the words are aligned. There's like a left alignment, but the you can just center the actual title itself, and that's okay because it is a title. It's like header of the video, and so you want that. That's an instance where it's okay to do so. Let's play this through. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. Let's see, there's a small hitch at the top of the After Effects ball, so make sure the end and the beginning and end position of After Effects ball are exactly the same. But other than that, I think that looks good. Let me see if there's blur on it. No blur, so let's add some motion blur onto the After Effects ball. And then make sure you're lining. Let's adjust the curves. Cool color palette too. This one looks like it bounces pretty well down to the ground. I would maybe adjust the curves. Let's adjust the speed of the Cinema 4D ball. And then same thing with in regards to what Nolan had, making sure that you don't interpret that footage because it looks like you did the appropriate amount. So don't interpret the hand-drawn ball. because, and then make sure they're all lined up so they stay good. But that's a good first pass on that, Juliana. And then let me see, Bear. Bear, just be mindful of the grid here. Of the grid on the title. And then make sure it's on there long enough. Ah, someone did something fun. Yeah, I would just keep the title on for one more beat. The little stars, that's fun. Cool little addition to their hand-drawn ball. Looks nice and goopy and fun. Good job on that. And let me see here. From what I could see on the After Effects one, it looked pretty good as well. Got the blur on there. There's a slight jump, so make sure the beginning and end key positions of the keyframes on the After Effects ball are the exact same. And then let's work on the adjust the curves of the After Effects in Cinema 4D ball. That's generally where we're going to see kind of we're seeing all the similar things happening with it, right? So, but good job on that, Bear. Good first pass. Megan, let's go to you. Good lining up. It's slightly over here, so be mindful of the grid. Make sure that B and that I like they line up if you have to adjust the font a little bit. Good job with the bounces. Let's replay that. The 2D, the hand-drawn one looks amazing. That's a good job. And nice and squishy on there. The timing's done really well. Add some blur to the After Effects ball. Maybe move the floor down slightly. Let me check on the After Effects ball, I'm saying. And then kind of your squash and stretch happens a little too early. The squashing happens a little too early on the Cinema 4D ball, and it doesn't actually fully touch the platform. So let's see here, make sure C4D ball touches the platform. And doesn't squash too early. Good job overall though, Megan. Sorry. I have a friend whose name is Megan, but she goes by Meg. And last but not least, we have Nick. Let me see here. All right. Then I believe I will hit everyone. So Nick, title. Let's add the title. Update the colors. Let's watch the bounces. We want to add, I can tell right away down at the bottom if you guys are going to have the 4 bounces or not, because the time code of the video. So make sure there are 4 total bounces of each ball. And then, but other than that, let me see. The hand-drawn ball looks pretty good. It's got a little bit of a jump at there, so if you can match the top frames as much as possible. I don't want you guys to put your names at the bottom here, especially because I see Nick, that you're like fading that in and out, which I understand like the path that you're going on as far as like where your thought process was. But do it as a title and not as just like a footer on the bottom of the video, because especially because it's fading in and out. I don't want to focus on that. I'm here to focus on the balls. So, and then the After Effects ball, we need to add a floor. Let's see here. I don't know what's going on with my keyboard. Add a floor to After Effects ball. Let's specifically say a masked floor. And then make sure the ball doesn't come to a complete stop at the top or at all. Because that's kind of what's happening there. So it looks like you're either there's like an extra keyframe where it's just kind of like stopped where the ball is, or you just nudge those keyframes over to expand across the whole thing. Just make sure that it's 2 seconds long. And then we need to do adjusting to this ball bounce right here as far as the curves go, because it is it's linear. It's not fully linear, but it's not accelerating on the way down and decelerating on the way up. So adjust the curves to that. Decelerate. All right, but good first pass on that. Good job. Good job, you guys, on all of these. And I will go ahead and put, even though you guys have revisions, right? I'll put in there a 100, like if you did it and you got it done, I'm going to put your grade in as 100. But then when the revision rounds come around, that's when I want to see you doing that and getting all of these revisions put in, right? So you don't have to do it right away. But great job on that. If you guys have questions, go ahead and reach out to me, or utilize Bell, or in fact utilize Slack. Like ask some of your other classmates where some maybe struggled a little bit in certain areas, others excelled at, and so ask those people specifically, for some help if they have time. And you guys can meet up at the school or conference, video conference, whatever you guys need to do with that. So with that, kind of closing out, on next class, we're going to go over the participation grades. I'll probably also go over your type. And then today, we're going to start talking about realism and surrealism. I'm going to bring up our module that I just published today for you guys. The real and the surreal, right? Well, realism, I mean, we all know what realism, right? It's realistic. Something that you would see normally out in the world. I mean, we've seen realistic artists, realism art. Let's look it up. yeah, I mean, the Mona Lisa, just fruit paintings. I would say that's not as realistic, but great, great depiction here of realism. Uh, Trompe l'oeil. I don't know if you guys have heard of that or if you've had art classes, but that's to trick the eye. That's what that means in French. And it's those images that people either draw or paint that are so realistic you feel like it's coming off of the page, right? So that's realism. We all kind of know what that is. But what is surrealism, right? It's surrealism is elements of the real world that have been like changed or distorted or skewed in some way. And a great example of surrealist artist is Salvador Dali. And then Salvador Dali. And then who's the guy that makes the maze? He, like MC Escher, does surrealistic images as well. Let me see here. Let's look up MC Escher. McDonald's. That's not what I'm looking for. Here's like it's surreal. You're looking into the eye of someone, which is very realistic eye, right? But then you're seeing a reflection of a skull inside of there. He does some really cool illusion type imagery, but Salvador Dali is like the main artist that you guys have heard of that does surrealism. His most popular one is going to be Time. I don't remember what the actual painting is called, but yeah, he does surrealistic imagery, right? Like this is just melted clocks all over, time's melted, skewed. What else like that? Obviously the legs of the creatures here, the horses or and the elephants and stuff, are extremely elongated and made thin, and they just look, there's something off about it, right? And so what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing 2 different projects inside of Cinema 4D for this. We're going to make one that's real looking and one that's surreal looking. We'll be utilizing inside of Cinema 4D the asset browser to look for models. If you have like modeling experience or are taking any 3D modeling courses that you can like model your own objects, then that's fine. But this is not a modeling course, and it takes a really long time to model things unless you're comfortable with it. So I highly suggest using the asset browser. We'll go over that. And then we're going to give 2 examples of the scenes. I'm sorry, 1 example of each one. So 1 realistic, 1 surreal, 1 surreal. As we go through, you're going to want to watch these videos here. One talking about realism and the other talking about surrealism and some facts about those. We are going to be starting this from a template, and we're going to kind of modify the template as we go. But here is the template for you guys to download, so make sure you do that. It should be working for you guys. I downloaded it today and it worked just fine. We're going to render both scenes 1920 by 1080 PNG sequence. And I'm going to teach you guys how to save your Cinema 4D videos with assets, which is kind of like, it's the same thing in After Effects as saving with with the, what is it? It's not deliverables. Maybe it is. I'll have to look up. It's saving. Great. Either way, saving with your assets, right? Like collecting your assets into a folder automatically. I want you guys to go ahead and watch, if you guys want to, you can watch this video here where Casey talks a little bit more about that. And then the deliverables, what you're going to do is you're going to upload your animated scenes as an MP4 to Slack. And then you're going to also upload, this is a little different. Here's where you get a little bit of a different, instructions. You're not only going to upload the MP4 to Canvas, but also the Cinema 4D project as well. And the most important thing about this one is, you know, we don't want to copy what you're seeing in here or what you see me do. This time you guys get a little creative freedom, right? So you guys kind of have to make scenes based on your imagination. There's a couple examples that are done here. At the top, you have a realistic example and then a surrealistic example here at the bottom. You can watch those. Or they're zip files, so it should be the working files with everything in it. You guys can take it apart, dissect it a little bit, go through it. A little bit of a reference on the asset browser. And then if you are having trouble with rendering, here, wrong. Here you will want to look up for viewport renderer. I believe the project we have in the template is already set up for that. And so you might not have to worry about it, but if it is going slow, remember, just look here and it will tell you how to render that out differently. You can watch any of these videos again. This will go, it's the same thing I'm going to teach you today, just different videos you can watch, and just don't create the same thing. So let's download, actually there's also this one right here. Let me download this one as well and see what this one is. This one talks about a new tool that we're going to be using today as well. This video right here, we're going to be using the place tool. A couple different tools we'll use, but let me check this project file out. Extract all of it to there is perfect. Let me drag this to the appropriate spot. So I downloaded the one, and then I'm going to put it into the appropriate location. Let's skip this. Let's open it up real quick and see what I have here. The biggest thing about surrealism, right, is that, okay, this one works too. Either one will work. You can download either of the files up at the top or the bottom. They're both the same. Let me bring that up real quick. Okay, yeah, I closed that out. So you can download either one of the files there. One of the biggest things that I want you guys to kind of recognize about surrealism is that they're recognizable elements that we're just changing things with, right? We don't want a bunch of unrecognizable stuff, because then that is abstract. Unrecognizable shapes and just composition altogether. You want there to be recognizable objects within this surreal scene, right? So you're going to open it up, the file, and you automatically saw it as this is like 4 different views, right? This is from the top of the scene, so what you're seeing above. This is what you're seeing from the right side of the scene, and then on the front of the scene, or the left side, essentially. I think that one is the left. Let me zoom out of that. So you use the same, you can use the same shortcuts. Oh, that is wrong there. You can use the same shortcuts to navigate around these scenes as well. So this is the front. This is kind of the scene that we're looking at also in here inside of our perspective view. We'll work with this a little bit today as well, but let me just kind of center that and move here into our perspective view. If you go up to this section and just click on this, it'll bring you inside. It'll take you into and out of this 4-part view. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut my camera off real quick, and that way you guys can see the whole screen. Let me just do that. 1 second. Here. And I am gone. All right. So You might want to try, remember moving inside of Cinema 4D are the shortcuts E. E is for move. Let me put that in here. E equals move. R equals rotate. And then T equals scale. Right? So remember E, R, T on your keyboard shortcuts, and that's when you're working with objects, right? These are objects. When we are trying to move around the scene, you hold Alt and you can either click the right, I think the right one, the right mouse button, or clicking Alt and clicking the center scroll wheel, or clicking the left button on the mouse will either allow you to zoom in the scene, move around the scene, or rotate around the scene, right? So those are your movements around what you're creating specifically. Now, we're not able to move and stuff right here because we're looking through the camera. Remember how we said, you know, when this is toggled on right here, this little section, this means that you are looking through the camera, and we don't want to do that, right? We want to get out of the camera view. So you're just going to untick that little box right there. And then as soon as I do that, I'm able to like move around my scene, right? I'm able to zoom in and out and move around and go all crazy. So we are going to do a couple things to set up our scene right away. The first thing is we have a studio backdrop here, right? And that's not necessarily realistic to what the scene we're trying to do. What we're essentially going to do for a realistic scene is we're going to create a room, whether it's a bedroom, an office, a living room area. It doesn't matter. It just has to be a realistic room, right? And so a room wouldn't have like a curved backdrop in it. It would just be a rectangular cube or like a box, right? So we're not going to do this cube. We're going to actually make another cube. We're going to come up here and we're going to hit add cube. We're going to add one to our scene right here. We're just going to grab that and bring it up so we can see it. Move it over to the side, maybe just slightly so it's not on top of the other box. And I'm going to actually hide this box here, this cube, because I don't want to see it at the moment, just while I'm working. And so what do you do to do that? You don't want to delete it, but you just kind of want to hide it. You're going to come up here, and these little buttons right next to the objects are for hiding or like making sure it's like the only view. It's like viewing your object, right? It's kind of like shying layers inside of After Effects. And so what you want to do is you want to double click on each one until it turns red, and then all of a sudden the box is just not in your view. It's still there in your project panel, but it's just not there for you to see at the moment. And so I'm going to take this other box I made, I'm going to kind of center it again. And then I want to change the size, right? More to a room. And so instead of the transform tool, which transforms your object symmetrically on each side, right? I want this to be a little different. I want it to be more rectangular. And so I am going to select these little keys right here, these little yellow ones. You see one there? There's actually one kind of hiding right there as well. And I'm going to pull those out. And what's that? That's going to extend my box for me. So I'm going to bring it out there. Notice it's just going through the scene, drop the backdrop. That's okay. I'm going to extend it out this way, and then finally I'm going to move my camera, right, because I can't really see the other one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and then I am going to grab that and just make it a little bigger. And then all of a sudden the light is gone out of the scene. That's okay. It's just inside of the box. And so I'm going to move the box over, bring it up here so it is we have a room, and then I'm actually going to go to the studio backdrop, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to just kind of move that back slightly. And again, I selected the studio backdrop to do that with. All right, and now watch what happens when I look through my camera. I'm going to click this button up here again, this one right here, and then it's going to take me to the camera view. and we're inside of the room, right? So we've got the walls, the floor, we've got everything we need to start decorating. But the one thing we want to do is we kind of want to remove the top and the side panel right here so that we can kind of see almost like a sliced open room, like we can see what's going on inside. And so in order to do that, you have to make the cube editable. And it's kind of like creating vector shapes out of text inside of After Effects, right? But this is a little bit different. It allows us just to have access to all of the geometry within this object. And so I'm going to go up and I'm going to make sure that I'm selected on that cube, and I'm going to hit C, and then you're going to see what happens. All of a sudden it becomes, when it's an editable object, it's going to look like a triangle with little vertices on it. And that just means like now we can edit it. I'm going to rename this from cube to room because it's always good to keep things labeled. I'm just going to unfurl the studio, and I'm going to select that room, and I'm going to go up here. At the top, we have a toolbar that allows you to select different parts of the geometry, right? Like this is if you want to select a vertex. This is if you want to select an edge specifically. Here's if you want to select a face or like a side of the object. And this right here is object mode. It's for selecting the entire object. And so I'm going to go into the polygon mode, which is selecting the faces, right? And I'm going to change my view here for a second. Let me go like this real quick. All right, so you guys can kind of see. I'm going to click on that top polygon right here, and I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to click on the side one too, and then I'm going to hit delete. And what that does is it just deletes the top and front part of the box so that we can kind of see into what's going on. And then I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to select back into object mode so that we can actually see we can grab the actual box and move. Now, the one thing you saw me do is I noticed that the box was going through the floor right here. You can't actually see the bottom of the room, and so I just grabbed my cube, my room, and I just dragged it up to on the y-axis there. And so I'm going to move a little bit here, and the lights are kind of an issue in here, right? Like it's all this dark area. And so I'm going to want to move those lights around a little bit. And so I'm going to come back up into the studio, and I'm going to unfurl the studio panel so it kind of looks like this. And I'm going to actually, the first thing I want to do is I want to grab this camera, and I'm actually going to delete it because this isn't the camera that we're going to end up with. We're actually going to add a camera in ourselves in a little bit, and so I might as well just get rid of it at the moment so I'm not messing around with it. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that backdrop. So I'm going to double click here, shy that layer. It's still there, but we just don't want to see it. And I'm going to select this key light, and I'm going to kind of bring it back. And I'm going to probably, let's rotate it slightly, or move the position, I'm sorry. Select that again. I'm going to bring it kind of, I want to move the lights, but want to move them. Let's move them into our 4 view from the top, right? Because that way we can see kind of what we're doing a little bit better here. I want to move, nope, wrong one. There we go. Same shortcut keys that I am using in the perspective view are the same that you would use here as far as the movement around the scene. And so I'm going to bring, right now I'm selected on the cube. I don't want that. I'm actually going to add, let's add a protection tag to the cube so that we don't move it, to our room, not this cube, but the room. And so what I'm going to do is hit Shift C to search again, and I'm going to write a protection tag, and I'm just going to drag it right onto the room. Drag it onto the room. selection tag. Let's see, why is it not? Is it because it's an editable object, or is it because I am... Let me see here. Maybe it's something I had to do. Let me figure out why it's not doing that. I'll figure that out here in a bit. Maybe it's because of the view I'm in. Let's try this again. Maybe tags. Let me just click on here. Another way you can search is up in the objects panel. Target, we don't want that. We don't want any camera tags. Protection. Why are you... There we go. I don't know why it wasn't working, but I just added it manually through the tags thing and it worked. Maybe I had to drag it directly onto this section right there, but either way, now I cannot move my room. And so I'm going to go back into this view here, and I am going to zoom out, not rotate, but zoom out here a little bit because I want to see, I want to take this key light and move it up. And I'm going to move it over to the side. And then I'm going to do the same with my fill light. And I'm going to move it up and kind of over. It's got a target, I believe, on it. And so I want to adjust where this target is. There's a light target right here. So let's bring the target up specifically to kind of the center of our room. In fact, I will drop it down slightly. And then I'm going to take this key light again and just push it back a little bit. Right there. I kind of want it just to fill in. I want the fill light to fill it in. There we go. Because we're not going to be seeing this upper corner of the room. And the fall off kind of works funny when it comes to lighting in here, but this area in general right there is probably what you're going to be shooting, so I would just kind of stick to that area of focus for where your lights are. And so then let's make this a little bit bigger here. Let's look around there. Looks pretty good to me. And so I'm going to bring that studio and furl it back up here. And the one thing I want to do that I didn't do before is I want to save this project right away, right? Let's save project as, and we are going to save it as Real Surreal with my last name after it, right? So underscore Makara, saved, good to go. All right, and so now let's get to some fun stuff here. Let's zoom in. Kind of move around. And let's bring this cube back in to the picture. It's a cube, tiny little cube. And so I'm going to bring this cube in here so that you guys can use it as a reference point. Now, if we go back up here, let's start adding some stuff into our room, right? And so we want to go up into our asset browser here. And I know we used the asset browser last time for materials, but this time we're going to be looking for objects. And so the first thing that let's think, if we're going to be, let's think of putting things in like let's do a living room. So I'm going to type in here under objects. I'm going to look under, there's a bunch of different categories here, like home decor is one, right? So decorative boxes, decorative storage. Let's look at that. Oh, wait, it's very small. A filing basket, a filing. These are small things. These are like, these are great to fill shelves with, right? Books to fill shelves with, candles holders. So you've got a lot to decorate with, but let's go ahead and type in here like sofa. And perfect. This one will work great. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to drag it into my scene. And it might take a second to download this asset. It's very normal. It takes a second to load them into the project, right? And so we're kind of taking these off the internet and we're downloading them into here. These are all included with your Cinema 4D license, but they're not attached by nature. And so that's why we're going to have to save the file with the assets. And we'll get a little bit to that in a second, but here we have our couch. Let's move this out of the way. And our couch is kind of in the floor right now. So we want to change that, right? We don't want this in the floor. So I'm going to bring that up. And then I'm going to try and get it on the floor as close as possible. And then I'm going to move it back and kind of line it up, right? That seems like what you would normally do. But we have a new feature inside of Cinema 4D, which allows kind of like snapping to happen with your objects. Essentially what happens, it's called the place tool, and it is this right here. Ooh, let me do this. It is this tool right there. And what the place tool does is it shows how moving an object with the place tool, it stays on the scene floor. It essentially just snaps to the other geometry that's around it. So let's try that. Let's grab that. And what you're going to see all of a sudden is that the handles look different, like the controller looks a little different for it. And that's okay. They all kind of work the same, right? Here's some rotation. If you want to grab that and you want to rotate it. This is scale. You can bring that up and scale it up. And then you can just move it and it snaps automatically to, it recognizes which kind of side you're at, right? So for realistic, this doesn't work. Having a couch on the wall, but for surrealism, it works, right? And so you want to let's kind of build a little scene up based on that. Let's hide this cube again. I just kind of had it in there for scale. And let's grab this and move it back. Let's scale it up a little bit because this room is kind of big. Right, we're going to grab this. We're going to snap it back onto there. And then let's look for, I don't know, like a side. Let's bring in a chair, right? Because usually you don't have just one seating. And right here you see a bounding box, and that's just kind of showing you how much space it's going to take up within the scene. And so obviously I'm going to want this bigger and more closer to the size of the actual couch that I have. In fact, I'm going to make it just slightly bigger so they're about right at the same size. I'm going to grab this. I want to rotate it, right? Because I don't want things to be, I want my guests to be seated and looking in the same, like they're going to be hanging out, right? So I'm going to take the chair and I'm going to kind of move it there. That looks nice. Let's add a rug. Let's type in the rug. No rugs. Let's see, carpet. No carpets. Okay, we'll get into making one of those a little later, but in the meantime, let's stick to just kind of what we have in the asset browser. And so I'm going to look for a side table. Probably this one looks not bad. I'll add that in there. It'll take a second to pop up. Let's zoom in. It's thinking. My computer's thinking. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's move the scene around. She's thinking. All right. Scale this up. I don't want it to be directly on that, but that's a decent size for that, right? This couch is interesting looking. Like the color and texture of it is interesting. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, cool. Yeah, just like a leather couch. Looks nice. And let me see what else. Let's add a lamp into here. The cool thing, I'll show you guys what a lamp does. All right, let's obviously add this one, possibly this one as well. Don't do like I do and just start dragging things crazy and overloading your system. So one of the things that you see right now is that it's got its own light source, which is really cool. And so if I just grab this floor lamp, and then I can, wow, that's the base specifically that okay, so well, that makes sense. It's because I grabbed a couple things too much. So let's take it a little slower and just take this one floor lamp and enter it in here. All right, perfect. So let's move it kind of back. Notice that how the light works with the other geometry. And then we're going to scale this up. I'll probably rotate it. So it's kind of right here. Maybe even move it behind. If that happens, you just move your view. Right. And you guys can always work in the so this got all out of whack, so let's kind of see what happened here. This one kind of went funny and all haywire once it started snapping to the ceiling or to the walls. And so it's just off right there. Let's just redo that one more time. Sometimes it's just easier to start over with that stuff. I can just go to the floor lamp up at the top and just delete it. Let's just add the table lamp in for now. It might just be easier at the moment. All right, cool. Let's make it a little bigger. Let's take it and snap it to the table. Cool. And then we will just kind of move over. Probably put it like right there. Well, let's see if there's like a coffee table. Some of these ones I think are Redshift specific elements, so I don't know if those will work. I'm just going to try and pick a coffee table similar to the table that I have here. Let's make it a little bigger. It's a coffee table, so it doesn't want to be that big. Snap to the ground. That looks pretty nice, right? Let's maybe move it slightly. You guys kind of get the point, right? I'm just adding things in here. Let's see if there's a magazine. I'm creating a scene that is realistic. This is something that you would walk into someone's house and see. It is something that you guys... Oh, add your artwork here. Here's a cool thing, right? So if I kind of turn that like we're looking at a book or something. I can go inside. I can go up to the magazine and I can unfurl this magazine object, right? And in here, I have the cover, which you can add. It looks like you can add images to the material, or the left or the right page, right? So if I were to go and unfurl there, and page 1, I think that's what we're on right now. Let me just zoom in. I have no idea what page this is. Let's click it. Oh, page 1. Page 1 is here. This is page, let's just try page 1. So you're going to go up to your material right there. And you're going to, I think, double click. And you will add it into... One second here. Adding a picture. I think that it's under diffuse. Here's one thing. In fact, this was brought up actually last week with the real estate of your computer screen, and if you're working off of a laptop, right, and you have limited space, if you kind of like the tilde key that's inside of After Effects, if you hit Control plus Tab, it will increase the size of any of the panels inside of Cinema 4D. So let's try this right here. Control Tab, and it makes this whole tab a lot bigger. And under the texture, and under, is it diffuse fusion layer? Let's just click here. Here it has the texture. You can always just double click that and then search for the file right here. So if you have an alternate file you want to put in, you can add the image there, and it can be anything that you would want it to be. Like it could be, you know, a home decor magazine, right? Pretty neat there. So you can do that with these. You can also do it with picture frames too. Let me see here. Let's type a picture frame. Perfect. Let's grab this one. Kind of drag it out here. And I am going to kind of move up. Let's say this one is going to be a frame that hangs above. And we just want to change the orientation on this. Let me see if... Nope. I will just select like the regular move tool. So like if you want to rotate an item because it's not snapping on, it's not oriented properly, you can just grab it like this with the original move tool and not using the place tool, and you can just hit R for rotate and then bring up the orbital, like the gyroscope, and you can adjust it that way so that it's facing the proper direction. And you know, that just sometimes it works a little bit easier there. And then I'll go back into the place tool, right, and because I want it to kind of be there, I'm going to hit R again, grab this, hold down shift, or not, let's try shift 90 degrees. Okay, let's do this again. Grab the place tool, bring it up here, hit R for rotate. Let's change our angle a little bit, and let's grab this and hold down shift. and just kind of snap it. It's at 85. You know what is going to be easier? For some reason my shift, it's not working there, is just putting in a specific under the coordinates. I believe it's this one. No, wrong. 0. Yeah. Under the coordinates, in your rotation, right, here's your rotation, under the P is the parameter that you want to change so that the picture frame is 90 degrees perfectly, right? And so I'm going to go back to the place tool, and then we are going to make this a little bit bigger, right? We want it to stand out because this tiny little picture isn't going to do anything. And so we're going to go back up here to picture frame, and we're going to click on it. And then under frame specifically, in the attributes panel under the frame, you can change the X and the Y dimension here. So it will change the size of the picture specifically. So let's say I want a long one, like 300. I want it to reach the length of the couch. Did that not work? Is it only to a specific size? There must be a cap on it. And then bring up the dimensions like that. That works. I'm going to do this. You might want to have it in place at first. Click this. We'll go into the coordinates, and I will change that again to 0. And then we're going to change the picture in the same way. So we're going to unfurl the picture frame right here. And we are going to go into, we're going to click on picture. We're going to click on the texture right here. And right there. And it even tells you where to place the texture or picture right there. So, because it does it for the materials for you automatically, which is nice. So let's say, I don't know. Let's put a picture of I like cats. Obviously, you guys know that. So let's put a picture. There is no cat. They brought up a windsock, and that's weird. Let's look for some kind of nature thing. Landscape. Perfect. Wood. Plants. Perfect. Let's do a plant. Let's just grab this picture of this fern or fir or something. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to drag it right into there. Onto the... I believe it worked. Come on, did it work? Let's click back on the picture frame. On the picture and on this. Can I just... Let's see, does it work? No. For some reason it's not working. But if you guys have, with a 3D object, I'm sure there's a reason why. But if you guys have an image, right, that you want to put into the picture frame, you'll just go and drop it right under here into materials. You can just click on the little... Oh, neat. I think you can scroll down. You can name your picture. I think in the diffuse panel. Let me see down here. It just says place your picture here. So let me look more into that in case it doesn't work. You guys can try it. Let me see if I have an image. Let me just download one real quick. Let me do this. I'll do this one. And I will create... let me save an image. I'm going to save it into the folder where my stuff is. So I'm going to navigate over to that, GCC, Art 184, Real and Surreal. Here's the template, right? But I'm going to go back here and I'm going to right click and create a new folder called Assets. And that's where this one is going to live temporarily. And then I am going to find that picture. Let's see if this works. Just like that, and I'm going to drag it into here. Picture viewer, did that work? I'm not sure. I don't think it worked. Because this should be being used as like a texture. Do you want to reload it? Save it as... Let me try and figure out how to place this in there, and then I will go ahead and let you guys know. Backside, it's not that one. Not the frame, it's literally the picture. Ah, maybe that is right there. Is I in the wrong spot? Is there anything on here? Not quite sure at this point where it's going to go. Let's just save image. Okay, you guys, I'll look into that further on like adding pictures into picture frames and stuff. But you guys get the gist of like adding objects into the room, right? We want it to appear realistic as possible. And so let me back out of here. Let me unfurl that and kind of move back here. Kind of out of the scene. And I'm going to get rid of one of the lights because we have this light in here. So let me try and get rid of let me do something else real quick before I do that. Let's make an instance. Let's copy this. Let's say we wanted another picture frame. It's a good one, right? And so I'm going to select the picture frame up here. And instead of hitting control and dragging like we did with the keyframes at the bottom, right, we want to create an instance. Now, what does that mean? In fact, let's do it with the bedside or the coffee table or the bedside table, because we would more than likely have two of the same size, right? And so what instances do is it creates a copy of that object, but if you change the original, it makes those changes to those copies that you have there. So I've got the bedside table selected, and I am going to go over here to this tab. I'm going to click and hold, and there's a button that says instance right over here. And so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click create an instance of that. I want to create an instance of the bedside table. Great. So now if I move this, there is a second bedside table there, like, you know, regular table. And so I notice I have individual property options for here, right? But then if I decide to change specifically with this bedside table, it's going to make the instances change, which is really nice, right? So that's a great way to copy multiple things within here if you plan on making changes to them, right? Like if you're like with the coffee tables, there's multiples of them. Or with like books, if you're filling up a bookshelf, right? We want to make this look as realistic as possible. And so if I even turn off one of these lights, that are in the studio, if I go to the studio and do this key light and I shut it off, I don't want to see it. One more click. There, all of a sudden I have the light happening right here. That's from the actual scene itself. So it's a little bit of mood lighting right there. Let's take the key light and keep the key light on, and we will actually shut off the fill light because that's the one we wouldn't. Right there. You know, that's a little bright. You can go in whichever light you shut off or remove. You will want to make sure that there's enough light to light the scene, right? So, because this right here, I shut both the lights off and there's not any light in that room really. And so we need these lights to light the scene. But what we can do, right, is we can go into those individual, oh, come on. My computer's just dragging a little bit. We can go into the individual settings of each light and we can, change the intensity, right? If we don't want it so bright. We can also use the temperature here because most of the lights that we use in a house, right, are going to be warmer. So we'll change the temperature there. You can also do that with the fill light, right? So if you know, the lighting plays a lot into the mood. But these walls and the floor are rather boring. So before we go, let's add some textures to the floor here. So let me see this. One of the things that I want to let you guys know, go into the asset browser. The simpler the texture, the better it will work, right? So stick to simple. Glass, not simple. Shiny things, not simple, right? We want to stick to simple textures, simple, tile, like simple, just simplicity is better when it comes to this because there's a lot more that goes into making those complicated textures look nice. And so we are going to go into the asset browser and we're going to go into materials, and under materials I'm going to search up wallpaper, right? Let's put a wallpaper on, or brick wall. Brick wall would be cool. Let's try that. And before I drag it on, right, I don't want it to go on this entire object. I just want it on these 3 polygons. This one off to the side here, and then this one off to the other side here, right? I don't need it on the floor. The floor is going to be different. So let's grab, let's try this. This actually is going against what I was saying. So let's do wallpaper. Let's just stick to the simple. This third one looks nice. So I'm going to go up here into polygon mode, and I'm going to grab that texture. I'm going to select go into here. Make sure you're not on the place tool, and I'm going to select the sides that I want to put this texture on. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag the texture onto the sides. And so now if I click off, you can see that there's a texture, but if I hit Control R to render it, first of all, it looks terrible. It's too dark, it's too big of a texture. It just isn't, it's not what we want. And so we want to scale this tiling of the texture down quite a bit. And so we are going to click on this texture right here. And on the material tag, we want to click on the material tag up in the top where the object is, and we are going to go on to, I think it's the we have to change the tiling of update the tiling, the horizontal and the vertical tiling. Let's see, tile there. That's not it, that's just offsetting it. The length here. All right, there we go. So we're going to go down here into tiles U and V. This is horizontal and vertical, and we're just going to increase that number to make the actual tiling smaller. So if I go into and start to render this out, then you will see that it is going to take forever. Let's see here where it's not going to work. Control R, viewport render. Should be a little smaller. Tiling, was that not right? Let me see here. First of all, let's change this color. Or let's just delete this entire texture and add a different one on. Let's do this first one. Or the second one. Remember, select the areas you want to put on it and then drag that wallpaper down in. And let's update the color. Double click on the object right there. Let's go to single click, double click, does not take me out. All right. I'm going to look up a couple things for next class to look at this, but you guys, I want you to start getting these scenes set up. At least your real one. We'll go over the surreal one on Thursday after we go through the questions and stuff. And I will figure out more about like the tiling and changing the texture of the wallpaper, and then also putting a picture in a picture frame. And then on Thursday when we talk a little bit more in depth about it, I'll have the answers for that. So other than that, you guys have a good rest of the night. I'm going to stop the stream here. And if you guys have questions, go ahead and let me know. But I'll figure those two things out for you guys, and we'll get back. And then don't forget to save. Do you want to save? Yes, I do. So make sure that's saved. And we are all set. All right, guys, have a good night.